K-pop girl group Newjeans made quite a bit of headlines in recent days when its member Hanni made her way to the National Assembly to testify on the presence of bullying within her work environment. We have details on Press Perspective today. Hello and welcome to Tuesday's edition of Press Perspective. Today we touch upon a social issue of concern within Korea's entertainment industry that was recently brought to light by Newjeans member Hanni at the Parliament, where she shared her experience of workplace bullying. For more on this, I have Marianna Baroli, a journalist for Italian news magazine Panorama. Marianna, it's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Right. I also have Bernie Cho, the head of DFSB Kollective, a digital media marketing and distribution agency. Bernie, it's great to have you here.
Oh, it's good to be back. Thank you.
Right, Marianna, we'll start with you. Let's begin then with details of Hanni's testimony at the National Assembly. What did she say and what were your takeaways from it?
Of course, she testified. I think that her talking at the Parliament was like a huge step in the K-pop industry right now. She actually exposed what was happening inside one of the major companies in South Korea, and she said that she was telling her to ignore her, which is, I think when you're at such a young age, it's crazy to think that to have someone that tells someone else to just ignore you. Also, when you're under such a reflection and everything, it's difficult to deal with all the stress and the impact of this kind of behavior. So yeah, I think that her testimony on telling people about bullying for the first time in a parliament, it's a huge step in the K-pop industry.
Right, she's spoken about how a few of her colleagues,
yes,
if you will, had been told to ignore her greeting.
Yeah.
And this caused quite a bit of an issue at the Parliament while she made her testimony. Bernie, staying with that, what were some of your takeaways from Hanni's testimony at the Parliament?
In all fairness, I mean, we have to talk about highlights, but unfortunately also lowlights. In terms of highlights, you know, I was incredibly impressed because here's a young woman going in front of the National Assembly on live television, and this was obviously going to go worldwide. And she had tremendous poise. It was heartbreaking to listen to, but more importantly, you know, it was extremely authentic, very real, and maybe at times borderline raw. But you know, she laid it out there for everyone to listen and to digest, and I thought that was a huge plus. I mean, again, we have to take into account her age. She's very young. It's not even easy for an adult my age, your age, any of us, to go there and do what she did. And then the fact that she's not a native Korean speaker. You know, she's from Australia and of Vietnamese descent. And so for her to do this in what I thought was really very good Korean under those circumstances was phenomenal. But there were some lowlights. You know, it was a very serious hearing and a panel and a committee, and then it digressed into basically being a fan meeting. I mean, it was utterly, absolutely tasteless. I don't know why this particular individual still has his job, but you know, just to put it out there, Chung In-sup, the president of Hanwha Ocean, who was there to testify about 5 workplace deaths, smiling, grinning, and taking a selfie with Hanni was utterly, absolutely tasteless. There was a little bit of unintended comedy where you had a congressman who was, you know, putting out some very serious questions, but yet the camera caught a little bunny sticker on his laptop indicating he is a Newjeans fan, which, you know, many of us are. And then there was, you know, another congresswoman who went out of her way. She was a chairwoman for another committee, and she may have delayed her meeting because she wanted a selfie. And so the lack of professionalism from certain politicians and certain businessmen was unfortunately a low light. But overall, you know, I think that this hearing, there were many who wanted to see harder questions, tougher questions being asked, because there were many who felt, you know, she had addressed a lot of things that were already out in the press, and people wanted to press more to find out if they could go deeper. But nonetheless, the conversation's opened, the discussion is opened, and I think that was really the intent of having her testify.
Right, and before we delve further into the presence of bullying within the entertainment industry here, Marianna, can you tell us a bit about bullying, perhaps in the workplace over in Italy?
Of course. Italy is a strange, we have a strange behavior. Like when it comes to bullying, people like immediately connect to social media and share everything. Like, oh, this is happening and it's here, like invite me on TV, let's talk about it. And they keep it very real and very straightforward.
Going online.
Yes, immediately. But I think this is like something that is happening lately in the last 5 years. Before that, we experienced something similar, but connected to bad luck. There was like a very famous singer. His name is Marco Masini, which won a lot of contests in Italy. Is one of the biggest singer, and people was telling that he brings unluck. He was an unlucky guy, and if you just meet him, he will keep luck away from you. So it was so bad, and it was cut off from TVs and music. The music scene cut it off him totally, but it wasn't the only one. We had a lot of this kind of events in Italy. It was like I think in the early 90s. Now everyone is relating to social media to expose this kind of behavior and trying to overcome it and maybe become more famous over that. So I think everywhere in the world we have bullying, and especially in the entertainment industry. But yeah, Italy is kind of taking advantage of that to become more famous. So I don't know if it's good or bad. I think it's kind of bad, honestly, because sometimes we go overboard with that. But yeah, this is what's happening in Italy right now.
And back in the situation in South Korea, have you covered any related stories that is related to bullying within the K-pop industry?
Not on my magazine, because I usually choose to express only the arts of the artists. So I usually do interviews. So I let them talk. I let them tell me everything they want, and they don't address that kind of issues very much. But on my social media, yeah, I support every cause that it's against bullying and everything. So not on the magazine, not yet. I think that the Italian press is still not ready for that. But if an artist wants to address that on an interview, it's more than welcome.
Right, right. Bernie, and before we even go any further, bullying, of course, is believed to be prevalent in industries beyond that of the K-pop industry here in Korea. That being said, there have been growing calls for some tangible efforts to better address the presence of bullying. What are your thoughts with regard to such efforts in the entertainment industry here in Korea?
I mean, I think when we talk about bullying, it's kind of within the context of possibly maybe related to school or young people. But as you get older and you get into the workplace, we talk about toxic work environments, but it's the same beast. And when we talked about, this high adore situation, but particularly what Newjeans had to endure, I think that, definitely there was clear signs of a toxic workplace environment. I think isolated, if you look at a band member being snubbed in an elevator or in a passing hallway, just that isolated incident alone, it's hard to say this is workplace, bullying. But taking into consideration all the other things these young women had to endure, whether it's certain employees on a company bulletin board talking smack about the band, to recorded conversations of the company officially downplaying their success in Japan. When you take that all into consideration, that obviously in many ways looks like a very toxic workplace environment where these young women are in many ways being frustrated or perhaps even being prevented from finding true success. That being said, a lot of people overseas like to assume and maybe even criticize that the K-pop industry is in some way, shape, or form exploitative. Years ago, maybe. Now, I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because a lot of Korean music artists, they have to abide by rules and regulations set by the Korean Fair Trade Commission as well as by the Korean Ministry of Culture. There's standardized contracts that not only promote, but more importantly, protect actors, actresses, artists, and particularly trainees. Now, the last time I checked the standardized contract that was drafted by the Korean government, it had provisions related to overwork protections, to mental health protections. But I think in light of this incident, and I haven't seen it, and I'm sure I may see it soon, but there's a likelihood that when it comes to toxic workplace conditions, hopefully the government may add new addendums to these standard contracts saying, hey, if you're in this situation. But if an artist right now is currently undergoing something under duress, there are hotline numbers. There are places where they can file claims and complaints, arbitrate, mediate, and if need be, they can break out of these contracts. But the government has addressed many issues and problems that artists have faced, and this is obviously something that probably will need to be considered in the next version or the next update or the next revision for artist contracts here in Korea.
Right. And in the meantime, Marianna, another form of abuse targeting K-pop artists on the home ground is fan entitlement. Now, this is an unfortunate scenario, of course, in which fans believe they are entitled to perhaps dictate the fate of artists who have allegedly not lived up to certain expectations. First, Marianna, do you believe K-pop artists are held to higher ethical and moral standards as compared to their counterparts elsewhere?
Yes, absolutely. If we're talking about something that is happening, for example, with Suga of BTS, which is like insane for the international press, like seeing someone going on like a skate and being such a under highlights and shedded by the fans, or like what is happening with Rise. I like how the international fan base is moving forward. Like, we're part of this. We're paying money. We're also spending money on these people. So, but yes, they are held on to a much higher standard. And I think it's because we still see Korean artists very far away from us. Since since we're not speaking the same languages, we're still seeing them on a very pedestal, like they're here and we're still here, and we still look up at them like they do need to have values, do need to speak for the people, be the idols of the world, but in the end they're just people like us with flows, and everyone can have a drink, come on, and like walk around in the street like being a bit dizzy. Without harming anyone. So I think that, yes, compared to the global counterparts, there is a much higher standard that, but I think it's especially something connected to Korea, honestly. International fans can listen more and can totally understand more their behavior. So probably they see more as people, but yeah, they're still so far away that they might be still on a higher standard.
Right, and for a perspective here from the domestic front, Bernie, speaking as an industry insider, what are your thoughts on the notion that Korean entertainers, K-pop artists, of course, are held to a higher standard compared to their global counterparts?
Well, and I think naturally, globally, whether you're an athlete, whether you're an artist, or whether you're a celebrity, just by default, you're going to be put on a pedestal. But I think what makes the Korean or the K-pop experience, I wouldn't say not just unique, but different, but also a little bit more toxic, is the fact that in addition to the pedestal, there's a noose. And the standards are so high, fans don't want the best version of their favorite artist, they want the perfect version. And we know that's not possible because everyone's human. And what really bothers me is like, look, I think holding artists to higher standards in and of itself is okay. But the fact is that artists, on a good day, bad day, they're going to make mistakes. They're human. And the thing is that right now, if you become a hashtag and you're canceled, there's zero road to redemption. And if we continue to apply this impossible standard on K-pop artists, many artists will never become stars because they're not given room to make mistakes and grow and learn from their experiences. Tough experiences often make great lyrics. If Taylor Swift did not have a series of boyfriends, she would not have had so many hit albums. I know for me, I mean, one of my favorite artists that I'm listening to right now is an artist by the name of Jelly Roll. And he's admitted, when I was younger, I robbed somebody. And he wants to go back and find the people that he stole from for redemption. And I'm thinking, you know what, this would never happen in K-pop. Because if a female artist dated somebody, canceled. So forget about new albums or world tours, done. And if it's a male artist who might have broken the law in some way, shape, or form, they would never have the ability to come back and succeed. And so I think this very tight, perfectionistic fan culture needs to kind of step back and breathe a bit. And so for me, recently there was an artist by the name of Seunghan from Rise who the company was willing to bring him back because, he had sort of done his remorse and rehabilitation. And, honestly, for international fans, they couldn't figure out what the big deal was. He had a compromising photo and he had a drink or a smoke, which last time I checked is kind of normal if you're a young adult. But he was basically, the company was terrorized for trying to bring him back. And, this poor member, he read the tea leaves and said, you know what, might not be a good idea for me to come back. I hope he does find success as a solo artist, but the fact he couldn't go back to his band because certain fans, and again, this bothers me more than anything else, they're not the most, they're not the majority, they're just the loudest and a very vocal, loud minority. The fact that they can wield this much power and influence on an artist's career trajectory is shocking. And, look, some artists deserve to get canceled, but many of them deserve a second chance. And if we look at some of the most popular celebrities and artists right now, many of them at some point may have said something or done something that got them canceled now. But back then, they were given some room to breathe and grow and learn from it. And so it's something that I think, obviously is worth more discussion. And, I can't have the answer in the next 10 seconds, but I'll leave it at that.
Right, which is understandable, of course. Meanwhile, Marianna, then, as we await for some tangible advances in efforts to eliminate bullying and, of course, to deal with the, as Bernie said, toxic practices within the industry itself, then what do you believe has been the merit of Hanni's testimony at the Parliament last week?
Honestly, I think it was just a baby step. As Bernie said, it was like a fan meet at some point. So I think we can do better. K-pop can do better. And probably we need a more valuable voice to speak out for these toxic places. Honestly, I think it's just a baby step. We're just at the beginning of it, and we need much more. I think I would love to see something more from Rise, honestly, and SM taking position on what is happening, because I think it is a shame for them, like for a young guy to be canceled that way. So I don't think Hanni has any merit, honestly. I think it's just a baby step in this long, long path.
But hopefully a baby step in the right direction.
Yeah,
then.
maybe.
Bernie, here now, of course, the million-dollar question. How do we build empathy to perhaps encourage action against abuse within the K-pop industry?
Well, given the size of the industry, I think it's probably better off as the billion-dollar question. In terms of building empathy, look, I think just publicly discussing and having artists come forward and saying, like, this is something I'm enduring, I think is a step in the right direction. I wouldn't say baby step, I'll just go and say a big step. But one of the things that concerns me and bothers me through this whole process is this idea that if and when an artist files a claim and reports, hey, I might be a victim or being subjected to, being bullied, the fact, and again, I'm not going to single out HYBE, I've seen this happen at many Korean corporations. When a grievance is filed, they will internally investigate. They'll ask the employee, hey, did you do something wrong? And they go, no, I didn't do anything wrong. And they're like, hey, if they didn't see it, they didn't hear it, and there's no evidence that we can find, oh, by the way, it might have been destroyed, nothing happened. And so I think that moving forward, if and when genuine grievances are filed, that outside parties, third parties, or something more reliable can be relied upon to find out what really happened. Because one of the problems with big corporations, and again, not just HYBE, but just in general in Korea, is that if a problem arises, they self-investigate to protect themselves. And often those who are whistleblowers are found to not have a voice and sometimes subjected to even further abuse or retribution. And so I think that if the government is looking to seriously combat this problem, just the idea of how to investigate these grievances, I think, needs to be re-looked at. Because, look, if a white-collar crime was committed by someone in the finance industry, do you think their company's going to look and ask their employee, hey, did you do something wrong? Of course not. They're going to say, I don't know anything. Don't check my keyboard. I think we need to apply similar standards of best practices across different industries, but particularly here in entertainment and music as well.
Right, and hopefully Hanni's testimony then has started the conversation then. All right, Bernie, as always, thank you so much for your insights today. And Marianna, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Right, well, that is all the time we have for this edition of Press Perspective. Thank you for watching.